Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA, episode 437. I am Brendan. UFC Fight Night, Magny versus Prates. All right, real quick, before we get into, real quick, I want to talk about real quick. This event went by real quick. We are going to break down all the fights, right? We're going to go all of them round by mostly just one round. We're going to go through all this stuff and talk about all that. If you like this kind of thing, subscribe to the channel. That way the next video is coming out. I'd appreciate it. Also, it helps me out, and I really appreciate it. I super appreciate it. I appreciate it. Can I say appreciate one more time? Anyway, go watch this card. Now, this card, I don't think you can put on in the background because you're going to hear about 90% commercials. What I would recommend doing is setting aside probably about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Go through and watch this. Fast forward through the commercials. Obviously, go on ESPN Plus and watch them all. Even in some of the fights, when there's some dull moments, you could probably skip through those to get to the action. There's only a couple decisions. Most of this was finishes. As far as exciting night, finishes are always exciting. But when you have finishes this early in fights that were relatively one-sided, the overall viewing experience of a 5-hour UFC event can be kind of dull because it essentially becomes, like I said, 90% commercial. They had lots of time to run promos for John Jones and do all that stuff. Let's start talking about some fights. Let's get into them. Like I said, there's not a lot to break down in some of them. Magny wants the single leg but ends up on bottom. This is Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates. This is the main event. Magny's getting in his face, landing some nice shots and clinch, looking for the clinch. He was doing really good at pressuring and landing and making Prates react to him. But then once Prates took the front foot and really started chasing him down, he landed a right hand that appeared to drop Magny for a second. He continued to chase him down. He caught him behind the ear with a left hand, and Magny went out. You're looking at the striking numbers here, 12-10. This was not a long fight. I think it was 10 seconds left in the first round. I would have liked to seen Prates go a little bit further. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong, right? Obviously, he looks fantastic, and I would have liked to see how Magny could have handled the pressure. Let's see if Prates, let's see if his cardio holds up over 3 rounds, possibly 5 rounds, because when you get into this kind of I've talked about this before. When fighters come into the UFC and they make a big splash with a knockout, with a quick submission, and then they follow it up with another one and another one, right? They start to get this aura about them, and the fans start to push, and the UFC starts to push them and drive them towards a title shot, title contenders, puts them in the top 5, top 10, top 5, that kind of thing. And what happens is you often don't get a full picture of who this fighter is until they hit their first level of competition, because it could have just been good matchups, a little bit of luck of the draw, lucky punch. And I mean luck with respect, right? The luck is what? Preparation plus time, or preparation plus I don't remember. There's a thing for it. I'm being stupid right now. Anyway, I mean it in a good way. A lucky punch doesn't mean that guy got away with one. It just means that in that moment he landed in the right spot. And yeah, you could Anderson Silva your way through the entire division and then blow everybody out, and everybody just gets excited about seeing you knock the guy out in whenever you feel like it. That's cool. But I always like to see a good test for a prospect like this early on in their UFC career. It's going to call it a reign or a career. I think it turned into crane. The whole point was, if you look at their whole body of work, you can get a really good picture of what they're going to do against a lot of different types of competition in the UFC. If you just finish people early, it doesn't really tell you the whole story. And then some people, get surprised when they get to a 5-round fight, and then all of a sudden this guy looks like shit because he got tired in the second round. Or maybe his wrestling defense is not up to snuff when it comes to the top 10. And, you get to these, Alex Pereira, he benefited greatly from the luck of the draw, his storyline coming into the UFC and matching up with people who didn't really want to take him down for the most part, right? Adesanya, on the other hand, had to fight guys who wanted to take him down and dealt with that stuff. So there is a big difference between the two, even though they both got the UFC bump. But I had a better idea of who Adesanya was when he became a champion based off the people that he fought. Right. That's all I want to see. And like I said, I'm spending more time talking about this kind of stuff because there's not wasn't much to break down in the fight itself. Unless you want to get real pedantic. All right. Reinier de Ridder versus Gerald Meerschaert. This had some moments. It was a lot of sloppiness. You know, when you get guys who are relatively good grapplers and that's kind of their specialty, and they don't want to go to the ground, which it seemed like Meerschaert did not. It was, you know, kind of lackluster, like I said, sloppy, on the feet, just both guys throwing big right hands or big left hands. It's just, it's not the cleanest fight. It's not the best example of what MMA can be. When they got to the ground, it was a little bit more interesting. Sometimes it was just somebody laying there. De Ridder was using that front kick and that right hand lead hook as Meerschaert loads up on that left hand. Meerschaert finding the mark with that left hand. So de Ridder goes for the takedown, but gets too high, and Meerschaert ends up lets him up, which was weird for me. I was like, oh man, Meerschaert loves staying on the ground. Why is he letting him up? And then I remember de Ridder. I know de Ridder's good on the ground. It's just one of those things you don't expect it against Meerschaert. You expect him to want to stay on the ground. He's landing that left hand well, and maybe that's why he wanted to stay up. The commentary team was mentioning that. De Ridder just looking lost and attempts another takedown, no dice, and then all of a sudden de Ridder keeps going with the takedowns, obviously not able to control him, and then he lands a really nice left hand and then ends the round with a couple big shots, including a big right elbow that dropped Meerschaert for a second. I gave him this first round. It secured it for me. I gave him that round 10-9. Second round, de Ridder gets the takedown, but no control. Meerschaert landing the shots on the way up and then gets him down. De Ridder gets a takedown in the stand-up. But nothing doing with it, and it should be 19-19 going to the third round. So that first round, de Ridder outlanded him 28-20. Second round, Meerschaert outlanded him 9-5 and had more control time as well, 2 minutes and 25 seconds compared to the 1 minute and 49 seconds. All those stats are irrelevant when it comes to the third round. De Ridder was able to get on top and eventually gets an arm triangle. They're both absolutely exhausted. One of the things that you will see in a fight with two grapplers who spend a lot of time in this fight on their feet because their body isn't proficient or as proficient in those positions, and often they will get tired. So all three judges saw it the same way, you know, splitting those the first two rounds like that. I just wanted to show that because we're probably not going to be looking at the cards too much here. I just wanted to get an idea and see what the judges were thinking on that fight. All right. Hey, look, an actual decision. A competitive one? Gaston Bolanos versus Cortavious Romious. This fight had a lot of exciting moments. I do recommend going back and watching this one all the way through. If you like, just because you see a decision, you might think like, I don't want to sit there and watch 15 minutes of that. It's worth it, especially the first two rounds are a lot of funness in there. Low kicks from both guys. Romious able going inside because of the opposite stances. He was southpaw and Bolanos was orthodox. Romious just powers through the underhook and body lock slams him. Ends up on bottom though, looking for the armbar. Looks really slick off of his back. Bolanos with some nasty body kicks when they get back up. Low kicks are just finding the mark with the right hand and that snappy jab. Bolanos looking great on the feet. Romious catches him with the left hand and another to stumble him. It was really quick, and here's the thing. He took the back and ended the round. It becomes really hard to score because if you look at the overall striking, 27-12, and if you look at who did more damage in this round overall, I'd probably say Bolanos, but the instantaneous damage, especially because it left a lot to the imagination with how that round ended because Bolanos obviously wasn't staggering around. Romious wasn't able to follow up. We didn't get to see if Bolanos was really hurt or not. So if you weighted that strike as very close to finishing the fight, I would give that first round to Romious. But based off what I saw, I still leaned for Bolanos. Second round. Romious right in his face, landing the left hand and the right knee to the double leg, then working to the back beautifully. They finally get up at 130. Bolanos staying in the clinch, some nasty knees, and gets a takedown of his own, finishing on top. Because of that, Bolanos wins this round, outstrikes him 15-3, even though the control time went to Romious. And I think the better grappler overall was Romious, but Bolanos just did more damage. So at 2018 going to third round. Romious fails on a takedown, ends up with this weird calf slicer position, able to get on top and then get stuck in a triangle, fighting off an armbar, still stays on top, gets to the back. There was not a lot of striking in this last round. Romious had more control time, and in those positions, I didn't think there was so much damage from Bolanos that clearly gave it to him. I gave this last round to Romious. I figured with the back and forth nature of it. Looking at these scorecards here, I did want to talk about this one a little bit because all three judges had all three rounds for Bolanos, and I'm okay with that. That last round is whatever. That first round, again, whatever. Like those are things where in close moments, it really depends on where you were sitting and how you see it. That's fine. Chris Lee and Saul D'Amato have acceptable scorecards of 30-27. Tony Weeks, on the other hand, what the fuck are you doing, dude? What in that second round made you think it was a 10-8? What? You thought that Bolanos won that round so clearly that he deserved a 10-8 for... What the fuck are you doing? Even when we have a night relatively free of controversy, we still get idiots like this putting in bullshit scorecards. It's like we can't escape it. Ugh. All right, here's another one that did go the distance. Luana Pinheiro versus Gillian Robertson. Now, this fight, despite going the distance, was relatively interesting because of Gillian Robertson's pressure and her willingness to engage in the grappling, move forward, and look for new positions instead of just sitting on top and kind of playing it safe. She always actively looking for the finish, so wasn't able to get it, but still fun to watch. Robertson was trying to track her down and work her way through the jabs and gets an easy double leg, then on the standing back to the single leg, and then back again. Pinheiro grabs the cage. Real nice, though. Even though she was warned 10 fucking times before she grabbed the cage, to not grab it, there was still not a point deduction. We changed the rules, right? They changed the rules from the 12-6 elbow is no longer banned, and then the knee to the grounded opponent. The grounded opponent has changed now. You actually have to have like an elbow, a shoulder, a knee, a hip, or your head. Anything other than your hands and feet touching the ground makes you a grounded opponent. I am much happier with that. I think that's great. Can we get past this warning bullshit? Can we get past it, please? If you grab the fence, it's a point deduction. If you poke the eye, it's a point deduction. If you kick the nuts, it's a point deduction. Like, there is no reason that you can tell me, I've said this 100 times and I'll say it 100 more, there is no reason you can tell me that they deserve to be warned a subjective amount of times based off of how the fight is going. That's bullshit. A foul is a foul. If you grab the fence, that's it. You have a point deduction. Don't do it. Stop fucking doing it. The fighters will make the adjustments. How many fighters do you know that actively hit people in the back of the head repeatedly? I mean, actually, quite a bit. That's a bad example. Oh my God. Oh, here's a good example. How many fighters actively search and aren't disciplined when it comes to kneeing people in the head on the ground when they're a grounded opponent? Very few, and that's because it's an automatic point deduction. You could instantly lose the fight. Why don't they do it? It's because it's not worth it. The risk is not worth the reward. So people will make the adjustments. They will stop grabbing the fence. They will stop leaning on the fence like that. They will stop posting out on the fence. And yes, it's going to change the way that grappling works against the cage, but I would rather have that than people stopping takedowns by grabbing the fucking fence. Like Pinheiro does it again. The ref stops the fight and warns her yet again. I don't fucking know what's going on. Anyway, Robertson was able to land the right-hand counter, but she's taking a few jabs when she's moving her way in because she's trying to chase her down. Robertson digging to the leg, Pinheiro countering with that right hand. Robertson gets a takedown. Pinheiro tries to flip her over, but the fence stops. It was actually pretty interesting. little interaction there. And Robertson on top, not able to do much with it. Overall, it's close, but I lean towards Robertson. It should be fucking 10-8 because of the point deduction. The reason I lean towards Robertson is if you look at the striking numbers here, it's 15-14. Yes, Pinheiro probably landed the more impactful strikes individually, but overall, the round went for Robertson. I thought the damage was close enough to where the pressure, the ground control really made a difference for Robertson. That's all. That's how that came down to me. Second round here. Robertson going with the kicks up the middle to the gut, low kicks, but her punches don't have the same sting on them as Pinheiro does. Pinheiro is circling on her bicycle as she's avoiding takedowns, running away from her. She is landing the jab, finally able to get a hold of her and get the standing back with 45 seconds left. If you look at the striking numbers here, it's relatively close, 25-20 in favor of Pinheiro, but Robertson, she just isn't doing the same amount of damage. And here's the thing. One fighter is actively trying to finish the fight, and the other one is trying to avoid interaction and survive, right? Pinheiro is trying to survive. The problem in this scenario is Robertson didn't punish her enough. So she lost this round. I had 19-19 going into the third round. Robertson gets a body lock takedown at 420 right into the three-quarter mount, and then the mount. Then she takes it back. Robertson able to stay on top for most of the round. They got reversed, and there was a little bit of interaction, but Robertson dominated this last round. This should be a 29-27 because of the point deduction. There was a 29-27, but I had a 29-28 in favor of Robertson. Looking at the judges' scorecards here, let's see. Adelaide Bird, I did see her blind ass looking at this fight. Adelaide Bird, Mike Bell see it the same way, where Derek clearly gave that last round a 10-8. I'm not mad at it. I just don't think that warranted a 10-8 based off of how they're giving them out. What are you going to do? Gillian Robertson looked great. She wasn't happy with her performance, but I thought she looked fantastic. Mansur Abdul-Malik versus Dusko Todorovic. This is the same problem I had with the same problem I've had with Todorovic the entire time he's been in the UFC. I don't think that he's cut out for the UFC. I think if you want to throw people in there to kind of like, I don't know, make him look good, he's a good guy for that, but he's 4-5 in the UFC. I think unfortunately it's time for him to go. Actually, he's 3-5 because the first one was a Dana White Contender Series. It's just maybe he needs to work on stuff, and it's the same thing he's needed to work on since 2019. He gets hit too much. He stands in the pocket. He has great grappling, but he goes for things that just allow him to take so much damage. Todorovic rushes in, gets caught with in tight and drop. Todorovic goes after that leg lock attempt, but takes a bunch of damage. Works his way to the back. Works his way back up somehow. Fights through that damage. Todorovic eats a knee, drops again, attacks a leg, and now the ref jumps in. It was a weird stoppage. It's not a bad stoppage, by the way. It was just at the moment that he decided to stop it. I feel like it wasn't any different than the other times Todorovic took big shots or got dropped. So it was just an odd one. I think, Mike Beltran just was like, you know what, I'm done with this. Todorovic just ain't doing anything here that shows me that he's got what it takes. Like, I'm stopping it. Like I said, I've got nothing against Dusko. I think he's got plenty of skills, and he'll fuck up a lot of people, but you keep feeding him to these guys, and he just, I think, I just don't think he's cut out for the UFC, right? I mean, his skill level, he just doesn't put it all together properly. I think he could, like I said, it's not that he can't win. He absolutely can. He's tough as shit. He's got some good skills. He's just too hittable. And yeah, the problem is he's got a great chin, so that's great for him because he stays in fights, but he takes so much damage. And I think for his own safety, I think we should probably send him back down, let him work on stuff. And if he makes his way back, I'm more than excited to see him come back with some new skill sets. But based off what I'm seeing, I just don't. It's unfortunate. I'm not telling the guy to retire or anything. Like, I'm not making that call for him. I would never do that. When I see somebody who has the same issues, fight in, fight out, and other fighters are able to take advantage of it, and on top of that, this guy, like, if you were, I'll say this piece and then I'll go. So if you're a guy who's really bad at defending the back take and rear naked chokes, and people just rear naked choke you night in, night out, if they get your back, you're going down. Well, that's bad, right? And it's clearly a weakness. but it's not going to end your world. It's not going to change your ability to talk for the most part. Like, you're not going to forget your kids' names. You're not going to, have messed up breathing or your broken bones. It just means that, like, you're not going to win a lot of fights because it's easier to take your back and you're going to get choked out a lot. That being said, if you take that same scenario, but it's somebody who can't defend punches in space, and I just mean punches, like jabs, right hands, hooks, like you just get hit a lot, that's a different story, unfortunately. I know, like, overall, you might have the results might be the same. You're going to lose and win about the same amount, but the amount of damage and the amount of damage you're going to take throughout your career is just totally different. And I just don't. This is a long-winded way to say it. This isn't just about Todorovic. It's just more of an example, like Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper's an excellent example of a guy who has worked on his skills. Yes, he's hittable, but he's worked on his skills, and he's not taking as much damage as he did when he first came in. Yes, he's super young, so he has tons of time to develop. It's just about developing it. Potential is kind of like it's like fool's gold sometimes. Like, you see all this potential, but potential doesn't mean that they're going to get there. It just means literally what that word is. It is potential, right? You could potentially get there. All right, we'll call it there with that one. I think I talked longer than most of these fights went on. So I appreciate y'all for stopping by. Subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of thing. That way your next video is coming out. I really do. I mean that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys have an amazing week. Love y'all. Peace.